Today we're diving into a famous puzzle right at the heart of the Easter story. It's a contradiction in the Gospels that has, honestly, baffled scholars for centuries, and it all boils down to one simple question.
So the whole mystery is about the timing of Jesus' final meal and his crucifixion. Was the Last Supper the official Passover meal, like some Gospels say, or did it happen before the Passover, as another one claims? For the longest time, it just seemed like you couldn't have it both ways. Okay, so here's the problem in a nutshell. You've got the first three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and they're all crystal clear. The Last Supper was a Passover Seder. But then you turn to the Gospel of John, and it says Jesus was crucified on the preparation day right as the Passover lambs were being slaughtered for the meal that night. You see the issue, right? How could Jesus eat the Passover meal if he was on the cross before it even officially began? For centuries, this just looked like a problem with no solution. But it turns out the answer wasn't about trying to force one text to fit the other. No, the answer came from a forgotten group of Jewish separatists from that exact time, whose story was literally unearthed from the desert. The key clue lies with a group called the Essenes. For a long time, they were just kind of footnotes in history. But then everything changed with one of the greatest archaeological finds ever, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in these caves at Qumran. So who were these guys? Well, the Essenes were this super devout community who called themselves the Sons of Light. They basically looked at the mainstream religious leaders in Jerusalem and saw corruption. So they broke away to live what they believed was a purer version of their faith, sticking strictly to the written Torah and rejecting all the oral traditions that other groups like the Pharisees followed.
And look, this split wasn't just some friendly disagreement. It happened after a huge crisis. The Maccabean revolt had just reclaimed Jewish tradition from Greek influence. But then a power struggle started. Around 152 BC, a new high priest took over the temple, and he wasn't from the traditional priestly family of Zadok. For a group of priests who believed that proper lineage was everything, well, that was a deal breaker. They saw the temple as defiled, so they left and started their own community.
This complete separation from the temple in Jerusalem went so deep that it included one of the most basic things you can imagine, the calendar itself. They weren't just on a different page, they were literally running on a different clock. So, the official temple in Jerusalem used a lunar solar calendar. It worked, but it meant that big holidays like Passover would land on a different day of the week each year. The Essenes hated this. They believed the only pure, God-given calendar was a 364 days solar calendar. Now, why 364? Because it's perfectly divisible by 7. That meant their year was always exactly 52 weeks long. For them, the year always started on a Wednesday and Passover always fell on a Tuesday evening. No variation ever. And here you can see exactly what that means. On the left is the official calendar, and on the right, the Essene one. Just look, Nisan 14, the day the Passover lamb is sacrificed, lands on 2 totally different days of the week. They were celebrating the same holy day, just at different times. And here's the kicker, this wasn't just happening way out in the desert. We have archaeological evidence, like the discovery of a gate in Jerusalem, actually called the Gate of the Essenes, that confirms they had a community right there inside the city. This makes it totally plausible that Jesus and his disciples could have found a place to observe Passover according to this other competing calendar. Okay, so this brings us to the big reveal. We've got 2 different calendars running at the same time in the same city. What happens when we lay this new piece of information over the timeline of Jesus' final days?
What's amazing is that using astronomical data, scientists and historians can actually calculate the exact dates for both Passovers during the years Jesus was active. And when you chart it all out like this, something absolutely incredible pops out.
In only 1 year, AD 30, did the Essene Passover, which was always on a Tuesday, happen just 1 day before the official Jewish Passover started on Wednesday evening. In all the other possible years, they were days apart, in different weeks or in a different order. Only AD 30 gives us the unique alignment needed to solve the puzzle. And just like that, the puzzle pieces click into place. This timeline shows how both gospel accounts can be totally correct. On Tuesday evening, Jesus celebrates an earlier Essenian Passover. That's the Last Supper from Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Then, over the next couple of days, he's arrested and put on trial. And then on Friday, he's crucified, just like John says, on the preparation day for the official Passover at the very same time the lambs were being sacrificed in the temple. Suddenly, there is no contradiction.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's a really neat historical detective story.
But this is so much more than just lining up a few dates. Figuring out this calendar dispute really reframes how we understand this whole pivotal moment in history.
It's a really powerful reminder that things that look like contradictions in ancient texts can often make perfect sense once we dig a little deeper and understand the complex world where these events actually happened. Sometimes the context is everything.
What this all boils down to is that Judaism at the time of Jesus wasn't this one single uniform religion. It was incredibly diverse. It was full of passionate, competing groups. Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, and they had profound disagreements on everything from scripture to purity to, well, even the nature of time itself. Discoveries like the Dead Sea Scrolls prove that a single overlooked detail, like a forgotten calendar kept by a bunch of desert separatists, can unlock a much deeper, much more coherent understanding of our shared history. It really makes you wonder, what else is out there just waiting to be found?